Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs.
Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com or, of course, follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by the choreographer Christopher Gattelli, whose work includes Hail Caesar, The King and I, Disney's Newsies on the Broadway musical, and more recently, Schmigadoon. Welcome to the show, Christopher.
Thanks for having me.
I guess my first question for you is, how did you get into choreography and dance?
Well, it started like probably many. My sister was dancing when we were younger, and I watched from the door and said, "Oh, that looks like fun. I'd love to try it." And my parents thought, "Oh, okay." So they put me in, and I fell in love with it immediately. I started tap dancing at the age of 8, and kind of never stopped from there. And I just started accumulating more and more styles, and so I ended up becoming. That led to becoming a professional dancer, and I just worked with some amazing choreographers. I was really lucky enough between my teachers that taught me and the choreographers that I worked with. I fell in love with choreography even more than dance, if that's even possible. So I kind of stopped dancing in my mid-20s and just turned all my attention to choreography.
So is there, because as someone, like, I go to the theater here in Toronto as much as I can, but is there a go-to musical for you that you really like because of the choreography?
Oh my gosh, that's really hard. There's so many good ones. I mean, I would say Guys and Dolls, because it kind of does everything.
Yeah.
I mean, just in terms of that, and that was specifically the show that turned the light bulb on. It was the choreographer. I did the production back in the early 90s, the revival that happened that Jerry Zach directed, and the choreographer Chris Chapman. He was so inspiring in the room. And growing up dancing, it was always fun, and I loved it, and I loved performing, and I loved performing on stage. But he was the first person that kind of taught me that, you know, you can tell a lot of story through choreography. You know, it doesn't have to be just like dance. And the way he explained it and the way he went through it with us was it just opened my mind right up. So I think Guys and Dolls, but there's so many. I mean, it's so hard to pick one, because especially nowadays, everything is, the styles are so diverse. I mean, it's just, it's a really great time, I think, for Broadway, but for film and TV, I think everything. I think, you know, contemporary ballet and tap and jazz. I mean, it's just hip hop. It's all over, and it's really exciting time. It's really exciting.
Now, so what would you say is the difference between, you know, designing or choreographing for a musical on stage versus in a film or a television show?
The difference, I call it like the box, right? So like on stage, when I'm choreographing for stage and I'm trying to tell story, you know, the people are watching the proscenium, right? They're watching this box. So I'm trying to choreograph in a way that's telling story, entertaining, highs and lows, and, you know, fireworks, whatever you want, you know, surprises. But I always want to make sure that in that box that the audience is watching, that they're watching the right event. You know, so if there's like a handoff of an important piece of prop or you know, or there's storytelling involved that's going on, my job is to take that big stage and make sure that everyone's watching what they're supposed to watch, or they're supposed to just enjoy the en masse. Like in Newsies, for example, like you're supposed to just watch that ensemble of boys just like come at you, you know, as if you were Pulitzer. Movies, it's different, and I love it. I love that it's a different challenge, is that you can be that specific. You can like keep it wide, and then you can zoom into like that person's foot that's stamping out a cigarette, or you can, you know, so they're both. I love the challenge of both. I love the different ways to be able to storytell in each genre.
It's interesting because I think about like, you know, the older musicals that were done on film, Singing in the Rain for example, and a lot of it plays out in the wide.
Yep.
Whereas nowadays, like you said, we can jump in and go around. So like when you're doing that design, do you think about editing and the post process and how it might show up, or how do you approach that?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, to be honest, I think that comes with like the director or the showrunner, in this case, Cinco Paul, who wrote Schmigadoon, but because we're talking about that, but it comes from that directive, like Cinco, he and back when the Coen brothers did Hail Caesar, like it was like the directive of, we want old time Hollywood, we want the golden age, we want like those really long shots, head to toe dances, as little edits as possible. We wanted to, like do that, which is great. And I love, and again, like that's a great challenge. And to be honest, like I personally love that, because I feel like dancers work, to be in the room and watch the dancers work so hard to maintain a routine and to perfect a routine enough that they can do it. Like, I think it's kind of like a feat, it's like to be able to capture that in one long shot means they're that rehearsed, that prepared, they're that on it, but then in a way, I also love there's, like in the editing process, because Schmigadoon 2 that we just wrapped, like it's a different period. So there it's like, you're looking more at like cabaret, and you're looking the way it, Fosse shot through legs, or like the way the numbers go, like bam, 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 clips at the end will fire at you to get you excited. Like there's different ways to do it. And I again, same thing. I love them all, but I think it comes down to what the director's vision is, the overall vision and the period that makes it feel appropriate.
I'm really interested in how season 2 is going to go, because I've watched Schmigadoon right to the end, and I was like, how are they going to do this? Because the way it's wraps, but I know you can't probably talk about it right now. But I do have to ask, in terms of Schmigadoon, it felt very much, I remember saying this to my wife, I'm like, they could take this show and just put it on Broadway. Like it felt like a full, complete show, which is remarkable. Because a lot of times when if I watch Glee or any of those shows, it doesn't feel like that. So, but it also plays so much off of the old, like they're referencing old musicals. So did you, like, how much freedom did you have to, create new dance or new looks, and how much did you have to sort of rely on the older style of dance?
I took the kind of assignment as like an opportunity to pay homage to all of my heroes, like I know I didn't want to, because of course it's it's also parody, but at the same time, like it's our own world. Like Schmigadoon isn't a real world. So I had to figure out like, what is the vocabulary for this world, like, so there is some Michael Kidd, there is some Ona White, there is some Agnes DeMille, there is some Gene Kelly, there is some, like, I literally was like grabbing all of my favorite moments and trying to honor like all of those, Robert Alton, all of those amazing choreographers, but yet make it feel like our own world. And so it kind of feels familiar, and I love that, because then it's like people who love that era, it automatically feels nostalgic. It's like it feels it's like, oh, this feels very familiar. I can't name it, but it's touching something in me. So it was so that was kind of, I loved jumping into that and just creating this new language for this world that felt familiar, but yet kind of just honored all of my heroes. It was great. It
worked, because the whole time my wife and I would be like, I think that's Sound of Music they're referencing here, or I think that's Music Man, or I think this is, so anyone who watches this gets to enjoy, if you're a person who goes to the theater, gets to enjoy all that little nuance and little things that you guys have added.
Yeah.
What would you say was one of the more challenging things you had to choreograph for Schmigadoon?
I think, I'll kind of answer in two parts if it's okay. Like the one is just in general, because this was right at the kind of soon after the top of the pandemic. So just choreographing it with like dancers with masks on and shields, and having to like, you know, trying to do lifts, but then they'd have to sanitize, and like there were no vaccines, like nothing was happening. Like it was so everybody was kind of learning as they went along. So it was like, one was trying to choreograph it, but two was trying to also be respectful and safe. And, you know, so there was that whole element, which was really tricky to kind of to work around, because you know, like, oh, I have 2 hours to do this number, but technically you only have like an hour, because every 10 minutes you'd have to take a break, or you have to, you know, they'd have to distance or something, you know. So it was, you really had to time manage and all that kind of stuff, which was tough but fun. And again, just a little side story on this, and I always love to mention it because we shot in Vancouver, and I'm based mostly in New York, and I didn't know a lot of the dancers there. So we had to do all the auditions again via like tape and Zoom, and like they had, you know, it was, you know, it turned out amazing because I mean, our group was amazing. But I didn't know them personally. So when I met them, I only was working with them. I only saw their eyes for like weeks. Like I didn't know, you know. And so there was that beautiful moment of like when they first stepped on stage in their full costume and wigs and makeup and everything, like, and I saw them, and then I saw them perform. Like it was very emotional, because it's like, oh my God, that's what's been there the whole time, you know, and now I get to see it, and I'm going to experience it like an audience would, in a way. So that was really great. But then I think the hardest number technically, I think, that's a toss up between Tribulation and the kids number. I'd say
the kids number's great.
Tribulation, because it was just, I wanted to protect Kristen, and I, you know, and it was just a lot of camera work and a lot of math to try to figure out how to do it and make it like work and make sure she could do it and feel confident. But the other, the I think more technical one was the tap dance with the kids, because like the kids, especially because they were minors, could only, you know, train for so long. You know, I had to give them the routines via video. They had to learn them at home. The parents, shout out to all the parents, because they came in, they knew it, but, you know, but they were tap dancing on desks, which was a certain height that they weren't technically allowed to tap on without having mats around them. So every time we would have to rehearse, they would have to they would have to put mats in between every row, every aisle. The parents would stand next to them, hold their hand. I mean, it was very, it was so many elements to try to put together, you know, to come together to make that number happen. So it like a toss up between the two. I'm proud of both in a way, because of how it really took a village. Like it really took everyone like just like really being so dedicated to it. And I was so, I look at them both still now, and I think of the process, and I think of how proud I am of like everyone just like pitching in and like helping to make them work. So it'd be those two for sure.
We watched that tap dancing scene maybe 2 or 3 times, because we were like, how did they do that? I was like, that's got to be a safety issue, right? And I was like, maybe it's green screen underneath them or something. We watch it, and then we saw the desk like shift slightly, and we were like, okay, they actually did this. So it's, I lost a bet with my wife.
Well, so it was funny because someone else asked me the same thing. They were like, "Oh, we were absolutely sure they were green screened onto those desks." And I was like, "No, I mean, they jump off at the end because I wanted to prove, like, I wanted not prove, but like show people that these kids were really doing it. I mean, they were really tapping. They were like, they were doing it. So it was really, I'm really proud of them. They were so great, those kids.
Yeah, well, we were sitting there and we're like, maybe they cut away and then cut back and then they jump off, or maybe they do this, but it's fully on the tap test. You talked about the camera and having to work with the camera. How do you choreograph with the camera in mind?
Normally what I do is I go into a room with a few dancers and do some previs, which like pre-visual. So I'll block what I think it could be, or you know, or give options. I'll say it could be shot this way. We could start on this person, open up. We can start on this person's foot, open up. We can start wide, you know, and I'll throw a bunch of options out on the table. And then it's truly a collaboration with the director and team. And like, actually, I'd love to start with an overhead, then come in and sweep, you know, so it's a full collaboration, which I love. I mean, I love being able to figure all that out, because like, again, especially a number like Tribulation, you know, like we because everything was shut down, we rehearsed with a group of 8 people in a yoga studio that one of my friends happened to have. So like 8 people represented all 60 people. So I was trying to like say, this is a Bach, this is where she would turn here, she could jump on something here, I could turn her around, I was trying to explain as best I could, and take the notes. But then like when you're in actual situation, like we got on the set, the Steadicam man was like, he was like, just pull my back. He was like, just pull my back. He's like, just pull me and tell me where to go. And he's like, I'll follow your lead, and that's why it was like this beautiful, like just collaboration between everyone. Like everyone was excited about it, and everybody like really, really pitched in.
I wonder, it's so amazing to have Steadicams now because of that flexibility. Like I think about the old musicals, and it was like, okay, we have a locked off camera.
Oh yeah.
We panned or we pushed in, but that's about it. Right.
Yeah.
Now, what would you like? You talked about having to audition and having to sort of train over Zoom. How do you do that when there's a lot of like little nuances in dance that you have to make sure you get right? And it's kind of hard on a little screen.
Yeah, I would. Well, two things. I would get really, really, really close and say like, your finger's doing this, or I would really break it down. But also, what I did was I sent, for example, I love this story too. Like Cecily and Keegan, I hadn't met them until like day 1, or like after I quarantined. Like I had never, we had only spoke over Zoom, and I was trying to teach them, but like trying to teach them ballroom over Zoom with one person, it was just like, this is so tough. So like you teach the best you can, but then what I would do is, and I did this with the dancers, I did this with the kids, I did this with everyone who had like a specialty number. Like I would go through the Golden Age movies and say, watch this number and watch their hand position. Watch this number and watch the way their hands are, like, they're not completely straight, but they're slightly bent with their hands flexed. Like I would give them number markers, like go to 205 and see the way she did that dip, like dip, but look at the camera. Or like I was trying to be as specific as I could. And I have to say, like, Cecily and Keegan were so amazing. And again, never met them. They hadn't even met until this. We all met in the room at the same time for the first time. They rehearsed on their own so much with those videos that they did it nonstop the first time. I mean, we were all like crying because it was just like, how did this happen? I mean, we were just like, how did this happen? And they did the like 1, 2, 3, my leg goes through yours, 2, 3. I mean, it was such a beautiful moment. Again, it just showed all the care. I think everyone felt so grateful to be working and knew how special the show was and or how special it could be. And I think everybody was really just giving it their all and kind of really dedicated to it. So it was, it's like story after story like that. It was incredible.
When I've heard that Cecily's a huge musical fan, I don't know about Keegan, but I'm assuming he did the show, so I'm assuming he enjoys musicals as well. Now, I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch? Or we could do musical if you wanted to do that.
Wow. I mean, right now I have 2. I mean, I'm obsessed with Severance. Obsessed with Severance. I watch it over and over. And I'm a Heartstopper. I watch over and over. There's something about the way they're both told. They're completely different, I know, but it's like the level of detail and the level of just the acting is like you find something new every single time. Yeah. So I just keep kind of going, like, if I need to just like relax and chill and go with something I know, like it's usually one of those 2. Or Mrs. America was another good one that I loved. I mean, that cast was just incredible.
What's I'm assuming it's about Miss America, or is it? I haven't seen that show.
Mrs. America, it actually tracks women through the 70s in politics with like
interesting.
And oh my gosh, it's if you haven't seen it, it's incredible. It goes year by year. And oh man, but it's like Kate Blanchett and it's just Uzo and it's just every actress in it is phenomenal, and they each have their moment and episode, and it's just great. Same thing. I mean, you find new things in it every time I watch it. Wow. So like I bounce from those.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was a blast.
Thanks. And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching.
Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs.